Turn on the camera? All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Reeve, Council, for allowing me to be here tonight and share with you the 2016 assessment update. A special thank you to Councillor Jackson. This will be your fourth sitting through this, and on her birthday, no less. So thank you. Special point. So, my name is Ross Jeffrey, and I'm part of a new municipal and stakeholder relations group. I was hired specifically to be a dedicated resource to the area of the county of Renfrew, and particularly they sought after somebody with smaller municipal experience. So I've been doing municipal financial reporting and auditing beginning in 1988 as a CPA, and I'm a former municipal treasurer. So every municipality is unique, but I think I have a good understanding of the challenges that you face. Today we're going to just skip through the property assessment. We're going to focus on the 2016 assessment update. We'll look at a couple of tool sets and finish off with some preliminary market trends. I'd like to start off with a description of the participants in the assessment system, and because it's important that the success of the system depends on each participant knowing their roles and responsibilities and being able to work effectively together. And the provincial government passes legislation, sets policy, they determine the education tax rates, but they also run this assessment review board, which is an independent assessment appeal tribunal. Municipalities, of course, they determine their budget and their revenue requirements, but as well they make a whole host of decisions on how the tax burden is distributed across the assessment base, and a lot of those decisions are at the upper tier, such as tax ratios and capping and things. And of course, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, we value properties, over 5 million of them in Ontario, with a total dollar value exceeding $2.3 trillion. So we're in the middle. 2012 we're using the final, being the 2016 tax year, this is the final year using the 2012 phased-in amount. And of course, in 2016, those values will be used for the years 2017 to 2020. So of course, in this simple little example, there's an increase from 12 to 16 of 30,000, and it gets phased in 7,500 each year. A property owner could get a decrease in their assessment, in which case that'll take effect immediately in the 2017 tax year. And it's quite natural at this time, people will get the property assessment notices and they're going to ask, how is this impacting, how is this assessment going to impact my taxes? And really it depends on the assessment, and if they're above average in the percentage increase in the assessment, then they'll get, if there were, let's say, a 3% budget increase, then their tax bill will have gone up a little bit more than 3%. But if their property value decreased less than the percentage, the average percentage value, then their tax bill would increase maybe something less than 3%, and it could possibly go down. So we've started a full 2 years early for this assessment, and that's part of our early disclosure and consultation process. And in addition, we've redesigned aboutmyproperty.ca. We've redesigned the municipal property form, the property assessment notice itself, and we've redesigned Municipal Connect. And on top of that, we've done more sales reviews and data quality checks than ever before. So we're working very hard to be this to be an improved assessment over the previous assessments. It's a common question. Well, why is the current assessment value different than let's say a particular sale price? And that's because the current assessed value is the median between the range that a property should sell for in an open and competitive market. And the timing of the sale could be different, so the valuation date compared to the date of the sale could be different, but as well the intent of the buyer and seller could be different. So a seller, it could be in desperation sale and accept something below the range, or conversely, a buyer could have a special interest of property and a special interest and pay a premium outside or above the range of. It's interesting to note that 85% of a property's value comes from these 5 major factors: lot, location, living area, age of property, quality of construction. And location, as we're going to see, is probably the most important. In fact, there's over 200 factors used by the valuator, and some of the major things could be a boathouse, a garage, a swimming pool, etc. I mentioned we've done more sales reviews and data quality checks than ever before. In fact, we've updated over 2.9 million data elements in Ontario, and specifically in Whitewater region, we've updated 3,550. So it's a big database, but accurate data equals accurate assessments. So the residential property owners will receive their property assessment notice. They'll be dropped in the mail May 24th. Later on in October, you'll see the farm and the business come out at that point in time, allowing for a little more fine-tuning on those properties. So our primary touch point for residential is the property assessment notice, and focus groups have told us that we need to incorporate simpler language, fewer acronyms, and have more white space. And so what's changed? Well, the issue date is prominent, and you'll see why that's important, as is the new value. And of course, down in the middle of the page, you see the change in value from 2012 to 2016. And we show the phased-in assessed value that will be used for tax purposes by year, as well as the request for reconsideration deadline by year. Our contact information is prominent on the first page, and they'll get a security code to access aboutmyproperty.ca. On the flip side, there are details about their property, which they should review very carefully, and as well as simple explanation about those 5 major factors account for 85% of the property value. And as well, more information on aboutmyproperty.ca, which is how a property owner will get all the details that are used by Impact on their property, which they'll be able to check. As well, they'll be able to check details on properties in their neighborhood. And finally, again, a simple explanation of the participants in the assessment system and their roles and responsibilities. So as you get inquiries, and you probably will, this is probably the most important thing you could do, is get them to ask themselves, could I have sold my property for this value at January 1st, 2016? And if the answer is yes, they can file it away for future reference. And if the answer is no, they should review the details about their property. And if there are any factual errors, not to worry, we'll correct them. And so Bill 144 gives residential property owners 120 days from the issue date of their property assessment notice to file a request for reconsideration. So the deadline for us is going to be September 21st, 2016. Now you see why the issue date and the request for reconsideration deadline are prominent and so important on the notice. More detail on aboutmyproperty.ca. Again, it's a secure site. It's simple, self-service website. It doesn't require any training. It's how a property owner can access all the details on their property, as well as details on properties in their neighborhood. And in fact, in the lower left-hand corner, they'll be able to see the market trends in their neighborhood, and as well in the municipality as a whole, and as well in any municipality across Ontario, provided they've released their property assessment notices. So it's also got the additional functionality that they'll be able to file a request for reconsideration right from the website. So just to recap, when a property owner has questions about their valuation or their property assessment notice, get them to ask themselves, could I have sold the property for the assessed value, this assessed value at January 1st, 2016? If it's yes, they're good. If it's no, get them to check those details on the property assessment notice, get them to go in aboutmyproperty.ca, get them to contact us. We'll help them to get on aboutmyproperty.ca. And if there are any factual errors, we can do what's called a special amendment notice. Now, if they're questioning the value of the property, then they need to file a request for reconsideration, and they can do that by mail, fax, the website, or aboutmyproperty.ca. And it's important that the outcome could be often no change, often there's a reduction, but it's quite possible it could actually go up in value, because as a valuator goes out onto the property and does their review, they could find out factual details that were missing before. If they still are not happy with the result of that review, then they can file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board. Again, that on independent appeal tribunal run by Ontario, and Ontario charges a $75 fee for a residential appeal. So contact us. We're here to help. There's our information, and as well, you can come see us at the local field office in Pembroke. The municipal experience is primarily, our biggest thing that we're doing is engaging municipalities and property owners in our early consultation process, which we believe will lead to greater transparency and shared understanding. And of course, we want to share things early so that there are no surprises, and our commitment is to provide stability and predictability to the assessment system. And we do that through 3 levels of disclosure. The level 1 is providing methodology guides on how we value properties, so you can go on to impact.ca and print out the valuation methodology guide for residential, for example. And the second level of disclosure are market value valuation reports. So usually in the more difficult to assess areas, such as farms, for example, or large businesses. But we take the methodology guide and we apply it to groups of properties in the same sector. And finally, the third level of disclosure is providing property-specific valuation information to the property owner through aboutmyproperty.ca and to municipalities through Municipal Connect. So it's important that municipalities participate in this process, and we want to actively engage them to do that. And so in the weeks and months coming, we'll be inviting municipal staff to review data and participate in those discussions. We don't pretend that appeals will go away. Appeals appear to be, there's a whole industry based around appeals. So, but what we do believe is that this equals the playing field so that there are no surprises for those years 2017 through to 2020. We've launched the Municipal Connect software on April 4th, and early reviews are that finance staff love it. It's a modern and real-time access to a lot of the information that they want, and it's just going to get better over time. We have an array of brochures, some about farming, waterfront, newly built homes that a property owner can get. And as well, we've provided the staff with a municipal toolkit, which gives such things such as media materials, links to videos for those more difficult things to explain. So if somebody's open, you can send them a link, and they can watch a short little video, and it does a great job of describing it. So the preliminary market trends, again, on May 24th, you're going to be able to go on to aboutmyproperty.ca, enter in the neighborhood, the municipality. You don't need your security code for this section, and it'll look something like this. So you'll see a bunch of bubbles and each neighborhood showing the increase in that neighborhood from the 2016 tax year to the 2017 tax year. And this is what we know about. We saw early on that Eastern Ontario is going to be fairly flat. That's what we're seeing here in the county of Renfrew too. These are the increases from 16 to 17, and so Whitewater is pretty flat, and it might have gone up, but it's kind of recovered since then. So there you can see single-family, the typical single-family residential dwelling is showing no change virtually, and remains at about $171,000. Waterfront has increased slightly up to $212,000. And those are the increases from 2012 to 2016. So even the waterfront number is not a big number when you figure it's over 4 years. Any questions? Yes.
First, is that general knowledge when you get your assessment? Does everybody know that, or does everybody know that? Like, if I get an assessment on my property, can anybody find out that assessment, or do I have to give it to them?
No, that's your property assessment notice. The municipality would be able to see that. Somebody on aboutmyproperty.ca, your name will not be on, but they'll be able to see the little plots on their road, and they'll be able to click on them and get details on your property, which includes some sales data. That's why location is so key. So that any sales will be on there since 2007.
Okay, I have one more question. I have basically a brick bungalow. Do you take the price of brick bungalow everywhere in Ontario is basically the same size, and then you just add the value of the property or location? That would make the difference. Like the actual house is probably the same as in Scarborough.
Actually, we start with the sales comparables in a particular location first, and then adjust for the quality of the materials and the age of the property and whatever. So that's primarily the biggest thing is lots of sales data in your neighborhood is how they start. Yeah. So your property wouldn't be compared with one in Toronto, even though it was the exact same brick bungalow.
Well, yeah, I know the land is quite different in location.
Councillor Olmsted?
Thanks for that very quick presentation. A lot of information. How quickly would the loss of services in a community get recorded against the property? So if an area loses a school or fire halls or that kind of thing. So let's say in 2017 that an area loses a school, I would think that would impact the property's assessed value. For instance, if a school's within 2 kilometers of the house, I would think that's a desirable area, and it would affect the value of the property. So do those property owners have to wait until like 2021?
Well, yes, to the next assessment, to the next assessment year. But what they can do is they'll have an opportunity to do a request for reconsideration every year. They still do get that opportunity. So if there has been changes in the marketplace that do impact the value, then those will be taken into account.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
So let's say an area does lose a school or a fire hall or whatever, and it's at the end of 2016. Would that get taken into account in this particular assessment?
No, no, so this valuation will be as of January 1st, 2016.
Right.
So that would be afterwards, and so, and again, there'd have to be data to support that there's actually was a loss in value. It'll really follow what the sales, all the sales data, the assessment will follow the sales in the area.
So is there anywhere in, on your website where it shows how currently available services impact a property's assessed value? For instance, I know if there's a fire hall or if there's a community arena and that kind of stuff, does it show the impact?
I'm sorry, I don't know that question. I know there's a number of factors that the valuator uses. It's not and there's a lot of professional judgment that comes into play. So I don't know if it's definitely not a formula.
So it's not like
there are a number of factors, and if it was an important factor, they would weigh it according to their professional judgment.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Do you know if the properties around Muskrat Lake have been reduced in assessment due to several properties selling at a much lower rate than originally advertised?
I don't know specifically. I can get you that I could get that answer for you. If there have been sales data, then that certainly will be. Yes, then they'll be reflected in the new assessments.
So do they look at what the advertised price was and what the reduced price was? Some have been reduced quite drastically to sell them.
No, I don't believe they do, but they do look at the sale price to the assessment ratio, and if it's within a certain, if it's not within a certain range considered normal, whether it's too high or whether it's too low, then it'll be made a priority, and they'll look at that property for sure.
Yeah, I certainly would like that information myself, as I live on Muskrat Lake, and I'm sure council would like that information as well with regards to the watershed area, with regards to the blue-green algae, what the impact is overall to the township for assessment values, because certainly if the assessment values are going down, then all the properties, number one, it's harder to sell, and number two, it's reduced taxes that are being collected along the lake.
Good question, and I'll forward that information on to Christine and Marcia, and they can distribute it and update council accordingly.
Any other questions for Ross? Oh. Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Okay. Just I guess to go back, if as Councillor Jackson said, if there's an issue with that, they can go to the review board anyway right away, right?
Absolutely. There's a whole range of recourses that they can do.
Just to clear that. No, but there's lots of people may not.
Take it out?
That's the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think so. Yeah. I wasn't doing that on your behalf, because I know you knew. The more things that get closed.
I don't know if I made up much time, but I certainly didn't.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Thanks, no, but
Interesting.
the helping part would help. Yeah, we just,
Can you get that?
Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. That's the first time I did that, so everybody take note. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region receives and files the following departmental reports: Treasurer, Public Works Manager, Chief Building Official, Environmental Services Manager, Fire Chief, and Reeve. So we will start with Marcia. Have you anything to add to your report?
No, sorry. No, I don't.
Any questions on Marcia's report? Councillor Regier.
Just a quick one on the arrears, Marcia.
Yes.
Over 3 years, when is it? How far?
After 3 years,
So
that I can go to tax sale if
Okay.
they're in arrears. So I'm working on getting some collections, and the ones, and I will update council, hopefully by the end of June, which ones have gone to real tax.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Marcia? Having none, thank you, Marcia. Bill, you got anything to add?
No, I'm all good.
Any questions for Bill? That was easy. Oh, Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm just curious, we're going to soon, or when are we planning to start road construction, Bill?
We've actually got started on Government Road with doing some layout stuff. Some of the locates we waited on a little bit longer than what we were supposed to, but this time of year it's extremely busy for locators to get all the work done. So I would say by next week you should see some ground tore up on that road.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Bill. Doug, anything to add?
Yes, we have the second lot in the industrial park. We are sending the surveyors out. That's going to be sold.
That's good. Good news. Any questions for Doug then? Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, actually, that was gonna be one question. So the property you're talking about here is the industrial park? I sent a survey out to survey the one lot?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've sold now 2 lots.
Great. And second question on BEI and the Whitewater Brewery property, MTO. You have a draft plan site agreement ready?
We do have one ready, yes. It has been sent to BEI's engineers for their review.
And what would be the next steps with respect to that property?
Well, we're still working on the MTO agreement, and I think BEI right now is in a discussion with MTO on occupancy issues.
Okay. And if I may, one more question on that. You may or may not know it, but the left-hand turning lane, I believe, is that part of this draft plan?
The MTO agreement that we need is to deal with that left-hand turning lane, and it is not finalized yet.
Thank you.
Christine.
And when we've had the site plan agreement returned from BEI with their comments, then it will be coming to committee.
Okay. No more questions? The 2 lots, Doug, that we have sold for sure, are there any other inquiries?
I have one other inquiry so far.
Okay, good. Steve, have you anything to add to your report?
No, Mayor Johnson.
Any questions for Steve? Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm just wondering, Steve, have you got a count or any idea how well the hazardous waste event was attended?
It looks like, looking at the waste manifests, it was about on par with every event we have. Probably 24, 25, 45-gallon drums bulked and taken away, and about 95 20-liter pails, a few very large boxes of paints. It's right on par with, and which is good considering the weather.
Okay, go ahead.
Do they keep track of how many people, they
No.
don't?
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for, Steve? Okay. Deputy Chief?
I'm here.
Okay. Anything to add to the report?
Nothing to add.
Any questions for Deputy Chief Moore? Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm just looking at this locked door. Is that the same one that we discussed before, or is this a second one?
I don't know. You'd have to tell me the date on it.
It doesn't have a date. It has a spot. I think it's Preby Road. It's 49 Preby Road.
BB Road, yeah, that's the same one we were talking about previously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That eases my mind. Thank you.
Councillor Mackay?
Thanks for remembering my name, and, is the fire permits on or off?
Fire ban is off. There's no ban on at this time.
Okay, so I can burn.
With permission, yes.
I gotta, thank you.
Councillor Jackson?
I guess, with regards to the grass fire at 1884 Queens Line, I understand that there was an incident, and I understand that it went unreported. What's happening with our communications with the fire chairperson and our CAO and council when there's incidents like this? And that certainly it wasn't reported to the police either, is my understanding. It rather concerns me.
Well, you're misinformed. It wasn't. The police were notified.
Police were notified, but council wasn't. Was the chair notified and the CAO?
I was notified, the Monday evening. They were made aware of it that day. I was notified that night, and I was aware of it.
And on the same day that it occurred?
No.
No, the same day, because they did not realize that they didn't realize that this had happened. They didn't realize it was, until, when was it?
Sunday at
Sunday?
noon. Sunday at noon.
Sunday at noon. So I was made aware of it on Monday. And then the chief,
Was the firefighter that it happened to, did he report it to the OPP right away? Or was it at the time of, on Monday or Sunday?
It was reported that evening. As soon as they left the fire scene, they went back to the fire hall and the OPP were called.
Okay. And, Christine, you have, drafted up a change in the way things are to be reported, I presume?
I haven't yet. I had hoped that the chair of Protective Services and you and I and the fire chief and deputy fire chief could meet. I did receive an incident report in writing. I received a verbal tip-off from the chief, and then a few days later, I received a written incident report. We need to nail down our communications policy and make some improvements. We have set up a new email system that is the 5 people that I just mentioned, the mayor, the CAO, the chief, the chair, and the deputy chief, so that we can have some instant communication when there are issues.
Please shut off.
So we will work on improving and come up with a communications policy that's clear to everyone, that we can follow. Further to that, we have instituted a new way of dealing with the fire bans. We have a checklist in place. The admin staff is in touch with the fire chief and deputy fire chief in the mornings when there is a ban on or off, because the weather's been very flippy. Even though it's been wet, we did have a ban on last weekend. So we have a new protocol in place for improvements, and I hope that as we move forward, communications will continue to improve.
Perfect. That's what I want to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. I presume that at the committee meeting, Christine, I presume at our committee meeting that we'll have a policy written that we can present that. I think that would be in order, or that would be good that we had a policy that we can discuss.
I'm happy to draft one. I'd like some input on,
Okay.
on the best ways to do this, which is why I thought we might meet.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody's happy with that? We got left, nobody. Oh, Reeve Miller, you hadn't add yours?
Yeah, I'd like to...
Thanks, Mike. I just thanked Mike while you were getting ready there.
Not a problem. Thanks, Mike. In regard to what I mentioned in there about fraud on elders, I was approached by, as I said in there, by a local resident, and we all know we get the calls and we know how to deal with them. But the elderly have a little more trouble with that. We would never really know how many of them get caught up in this because they wouldn't talk about it. So this lady got one, and then she started checking with her friends, and they're all getting them. So when I was up at CPAC, I was going to bring it up, but I was beat to the punch by Councillor Plum from North Algona, Wilberforce, and they've already moved to have meetings to bring out the, elders, and the police would come down and speak at this meeting and try to educate them, maybe have a few sandwiches a meeting. And I would like to encourage this council to promote that and take advantage of that. The police help, and perhaps have staff help set up a meeting similar to what they're doing out there. I think it would be appreciated. And if it saved one person from getting hurt, it will all be worthwhile.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
Could it be organized through the seniors groups? Because I know a number of seniors groups meet in different areas, to have one meeting just here, but I would think it would be beneficial to have it, in Westmeath and all the different areas, rather than just one, and maybe just have the communications officer for the OPP attend those, if that helps. I think it's a great idea. I think it's well needed. I think the tactics that people use on the phones these days is horrendous, and the elders certainly get tied up in it, and they don't understand, and they fear that they're going to do something wrong, and therefore go ahead and follow the direction of somebody being quite demanding on the phone, and it's very unfortunate.
I agree.
With CPAC, the Renfrew side, we can get that coordinated right across Renfrew County very quickly, and I agree. The meetings, I'll bring that forward to our meeting, and maybe we can do that sooner than later. Another issue that we discussed at our CPAC meeting was a number that they can phone, an 0800 number that they can phone directly to the fraud people, and they don't have to give their name or anything, but it bypasses our cost to the OPP also. And it's a very easy system for them to use, apparently. I haven't done it yet, but we'll go right back to the Reeve, then we'll go.
Yeah, I'm just going to touch on that issue about the cost. I checked with this lady prior to tonight's meeting just to tell her what I was hoping to do, and she has since found another one that called it in to the police. So we will get a bill for that, and that alone is good reason for the education.
Exactly. Councillor Olmsted?
I think it's a lot bigger problem or issue that people think, telephone fraud and door-to-door fraud. So I used to be in the business of renting property to elders and certain buildings that were designated seniors only. And there were a number of issues. Telephone fraud was a small issue, but door-to-door fraud, where these people became very aggressive. They'd stick their foot in the door so the elder couldn't close the door and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty big issue. And in a building of this size, about half of the elders spoke to me. So that's just in one building. So I think it's a lot bigger issue than maybe we want to believe it is. So So I think an education would really help.
Excellent. Well, we'll get that under control and get moving on it. Any other questions of Reeve Miller?
Just one.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I see the Reeve chaired the Renfrew County Ag Economic Development Committee, and in there specifically talks about Taste of the Valley. So I'd like maybe if he could keep us abreast, as you know, we probably host the best Taste of the Valley in Renfrew County, and this year we just had a meeting last Tuesday, another one coming up in June at some point. But if there's any developments that the Renfrew County are looking at, we'd like to certainly be advised of them, and you're more than welcome to come to our meetings as well.
Okay, you let me know and I'll be there when you have your meeting.
Okay, no more questions. That's departmental reports. So, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Chris Olmsted, seconded by Charlene Jackson, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region adopts the minutes of April 13th, April 17th, May 4th, and May 11th, Council and Committee meetings. Councillor Jackson.
I just have one question with regards to the April 13th meeting. Do you know if Charles and Brian and staff have received anything back from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to set a meeting date?
Yes, we have a meeting date set for June 1st at the county.
Awesome. Thank you.
All those in favor? Carried. I know what's wrong. Moved by Darrell McLaughlin, seconded by Chris Olmsted, be it resolved that the Corporate Services Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region agrees to amend the hours of work and overtime policy and bring it back to the May 18th council meeting. Councillor Jackson.
Okay, we're not down to the new one. We're not going to discuss 12.1, no? 12.2? I'm not there. That's just the motion. Okay.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, these are all ratification. Well, that's a big word. Moved by Charlene Jackson, seconded by Kathy Regier, be it resolved that the Planning Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for May 18th council meeting authorizing wilderness tours to use the unopened road allowance between Lot 6 and 7, Concession 12, Lot 6 and 7, Concession 13, and Lot 5, Concession 10, Northern Division, as well as between Lot 7 and 8, Concession 12, and Lot 7 and 8, Concession 13. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Charlene Jackson, seconded by Darrell McLaughlin, be it resolved that the Planning Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region directs the CAO to inform the County of Renfrew School District School Board that the Council wishes to be a delegation at the May 16th School Board meeting to protest the possible closure of Westmeath Public School. Any comments? Councillor Mackay.
I'd just like to say that we had almost full council the other night representing our council, and it's very good, and I think people appreciate it.
And so everybody's aware, Councillor Jackson was in bed, very ill, and notified me. Duly noted. And I told her that we did all right, and not to rush up sick. Councillor Olmsted.
I was speaking today with Trustee Shields, who told me that the entire board was very moved by, there was 10 presentations the other night. They were very moved by the presentations, that they did meet after, and they agreed that they have a very, very tough decision to make, and they didn't think it was financial. By the end of that meeting, they agreed that this wasn't just a financial consideration. So I believe May 31st is the date they make that decision, and I've been assured that they are trying to uncover every rock, overturn every stone to figure it out, but it's going to be a tough decision either way.
I agree. I really do hope they look seriously at postponing it for 5 years. That's kind of the term of decision for them. And it would give us a chance to maybe come up with some further answers to help them out. And as we said, it's an end destination point. It's not a highway going through to something else and then coming back. I'm still getting phone calls from residents. One is a builder that didn't get to come to that meeting, but he's got 2 brand new homes, and he's really afraid he's just not going to be able to sell them, because he's already had people phone. They want to know what is there, and then one of them heard the school was closing and wanted that verified, and when it was verified, withdrew the offer. So it is serious. It's very, very family oriented and serious.